Welcome CSC 103 class. This is what was our exercise 8. It could be 8B because we had an 8A, but anyway, this is the ShowHidePatrick. This is our first kind of example of using JavaScript to do some interactivity, and this is very simple. We're just going to use some HTML. We have a heading up here, an H1 tag, we have a paragraph tag, and we have two buttons that we're starting with, and we also have an image here that we can't see right now because our CSS has turned the opacity down to 0, but it's actually here. There's a picture of Patrick there, but when we hit this button, it's actually going to make the opacity go up to 1 or 100%. So if I do show Patrick, it makes Patrick show up here. It actually generated another paragraph that actually said great job, and when we say hide Patrick, it goes away. So I'm going to go through how to do that. I'll try to do it very quickly so I don't have to spend a lot of time typing. So I'm just going to copy some of this, and I'll copy it right up to the button. Actually, I'll just copy the paragraph and then I'll show you how to type the button. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to make a new pen. So I'm going to go here and just create a new pen, so I'm not using that one. And for my HTML, I'm just going to give myself some room for the HTML, and I'll paste that beginning stuff so we don't have to do that. Remember, we're going to have an opening and closing body tag, so let me put in my closing body, because we should always do that first. And remember, it needs the slash, and it should go out at the margin and line up with body. So we have an H1 here. I don't have to retype this. It just says ShowHidePatrick. And we have an example of using HTML and CSS, however you want to say that. That's just our little description of what's going on, and that's in a P tag. And there's also, notice there's something else I pasted in here, and in your instructions, this might be at the end of the assignment. This is basically creating an H2 tag that's empty. Notice there's nothing inside it. Notice there's nothing inside it, but it does have an ID called message. And that's because we're going to use that message to do that little great job after we show Patrick. So right now it's not doing anything and we won't even see it. So there's almost nothing really there right now. So after this paragraph, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a button, and we're just going to use a button tag. There's different kinds of buttons. There's input type buttons, and we're just going to use a regular button that we're going to use for JavaScript that is just meant to click on and make things happen. So I'm going to use button, and I could close my button. I could just have an opening and closing button tag, and inside button, whatever I put in there is going to be on the button. So I'm just going to call it show Patrick. It's just a label that's going to go on a button when that button shows up. So there it is. And if you notice, it's real small. That's why when we do our CSS, and I'll go down here and I'll do some CSS before I do anything else. I'm going to go in here, CSS. I'm going to do body. And for body, what I'm going to do is just put a little margin on the page. And I'm even going to do a little background. So I'm going to do a margin of, just like 30 pixels. Just a little bit of margin around the page a little bit. What that should create, if I spell it right, if I put an M there, and you can see what it does. It creates that little margin around here. So that's all I'm going to do for body. I might also do a background color, and I'll do like a blue. So I'll do a 0000 FF, and that'll create a dark blue, and I don't want a dark blue, so I'll put these up real high. I'll make these like AA, and see how that looks. And if I want them lighter, I'll keep going up higher. I'll make them BB. And now it's a little bit lighter. Do I have enough there? BB, FF. And as I keep going up higher, that'll keep making it a little bit lighter blue. So that's fine right now. And I'll put my semicolon after it, so that's for my body. And then also what I'll do for my button is I'll just make it a little bigger because it's kind of hard to see. So I'll just do button. And I'm just going to do font size. And I think if I just do 100%, it actually makes it show up a lot bigger. So that looks good right there. So I'll make that button a little bit bigger. And that's all I really need right now, so every button will be a little bit bigger. What I have to do now is I'm going to put Patrick in my page, and then we're going to put a button after it. So after this button, and I might have to put a paragraph or a line break after it, but just for now, I'm going to put an image source, and I'm going to say equals, and I'm going to put my double quotes, and I'm even going to close this off so this image is closed. And I'm even going to give it an ID, but before I do anything, I'll just call it ID equals, and also in quotes, I'll call it pick. And we just put an ID like that. ID equals pick. We don't put any pound sign in for the ID. That's only when we target the ID down here. And image source, I'm going to go find a picture of Patrick. And there's Patrick. And I'll go to images. And there's Patrick. And I'm going to look for a ping. So I could even put ping in here so it's transparent background. And to know that it's a ping, you should see when you click on them, you should see a little like checkerboard behind it. So I'll see if I could find a Patrick that's not too big. Somewhere around 400 or 500 pixels, maybe not a whole lot bigger than that. This is a good one. It doesn't appear to, yeah, that's a ping. That'll be good. That's a good size, and it has the checkerboard background, which means it'll be transparent, so I'll see the background on my page behind it. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to get this from the web. I'm not going to download it. I'm just going to right-click on here and do copy image address, just like we did with Pixlr. I'm going to copy that image address and go back to my pen. And now when you put it in here, it's going to be, it might be a couple lines. It could be very long, so just be aware of that it's going to make that long address. And you can see that Patrick looks very big in here right now. The size of him, I guess, is a little bit bigger than I thought. So if you want to make that smaller, what you could do is go into your CSS. I'll scroll up here and I'll go to my CSS and I'll target pick. And that would be the pound. You would just have to put # pick. That's all you would need to do. And I'll put my brackets here, my curly braces. And if you want to make them a little smaller, you could put in width. I think you might be able to put a percentage, or you could put pixels. I'm just going to put like 60% right now, see if that works. And that makes them a little bit smaller. Maybe I'll even go smaller, just so he could kind of fit in our little preview area right now. And you could also put pixels in there. Maybe I'll even go 40, just so we could see him, so we could see what we're doing. And that's a good size. So now you see what happens. He went kind of aside of that button. So I actually want the button up here. So what I'm going to do is go back into my HTML. And I'm just going to put after that paragraph, after this button here, I'm just going to put I could put a BR. That should be enough to kind of bump it down. And that did. So that bumped Patrick down kind of on a line below that button, and that's all I want. And then I also want a BR before I put the next button. So we're going to also put another button here before we do anything with any JavaScript. So after this, I'm going to put another BR. And you could put it right here. You could put it right aside of it. You don't have to put it on another line in the code. And then I'm going to put a button down here, and there's no reason to type button again. You could just copy this code and paste this code here, and this button is going to say Hi Patrick, so just change the text. And now we should have a button down here that says Hi Patrick, and that's fine. What we're going to do is we're going to show Patrick and we're going to hide Patrick. That means when we show him, he has to be transparent. And an easy way to do that, there's different ways to do this. I'm going to go in here and turn his opacity down really low to like 0. And if you're not sure, if you just want to make sure it works, put it at like, now this goes from 0 to 1, meaning if 0, it's transparent, 1, it's 100%. So anything in between would be like 0.2, 0.3, whatever. So if I did 0.2, and that would be like 20%. So he's kind of semi-transparent right now. You could kind of do that just to test it. But now if you want, you could put it to 0. That way he'll be completely gone. But he's still there. His opacity is just down. So, and you're just targeting his ID to do that through CSS. So that's all you should have to do. And what we're going to do is do some JavaScript. We're going to make a function that actually runs off the button and makes him 100%. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the function keyword that we just type out function. And I'm going to space this out. And then I'm going to name a function. And I'll just call it show Patrick. Just call it whatever you want. Make sure it's descriptive. And then I'll do curly brackets, opening and closing. Make sure everything's inside the curly brackets. And all that's going to happen here when we run this function is we're going to show Patrick and we're going to make him 100%. So we're going to do document.getElementById. This is a JavaScript method that does this. So we're finding a way to get something, and we're going to get it by ID. And the ID we're going to be getting is going to be the pick one. So we got to do, we're not actually going to put the # in here. We're actually going to put it in quotes because we're doing exactly the way it's in the HTML, because that's the ID name. The ID name is pick in quotes like that. So this isn't CSS. We're using the #. So we're going document get element by ID. And what do we want to do here? We have to put kind of two properties here. We're going to put style, so we kind of activate the CSS, and then we're going to put .opacity. And then we could just do equals, and then in quotes we're going to put 1, the number 1, and then make sure that you put a semicolon at the end of it. So that's what's going to happen. This is kind of what's going to happen inside that function. Now nothing happens yet until we run the function. So the function hasn't been run yet. We can just like write the function somewhere and it could run, but right now it's not going to run. We're going to make it run off the button. So what we'll do is copy the function, copy this whole show Patrick thing, including the brackets, or including the parentheses, and then I'm going to go up and I'll hide my CSS. And what we do is we put this right inside the button, and we use an on-click event. We're going to use on-click, and you have to spell it like that. It's not a capital C. It's not a one-click. It's not anything like that. It's on-click equals, And then inside quotes, you're just going to paste your function. And it's going to look like that. And don't worry if the lines break or anything. It's going to look like that button, and then there's a space, on click equals. It's going to run the function, and make sure you have your finished quotes there, and make sure the tag closes off, and that should be it. And then when you click on this, what should happen is Patrick should appear. And we're also going to make one that says hide Patrick. And that should be pretty easy to do because you already know how to show them. You should be able to hide them pretty easy. So you could just copy this function. It has to be a different function. We'll make a function that hides Patrick and then just change the names. That'll be fairly easy to do. We'll call it hide Patrick, and we'll change the opacity to 0 because when you hide them, you'll put them to 0. If you show Patrick and then you do hide Patrick, it's not going to work. Why won't it work? Because we made the function, but we're not running it yet. So we still have to do the same thing we did with the other button. We have to highlight this and copy it, because that's the best way to type it without screwing it up. Because if these aren't exact, they're not going to work. And then I'm going to go into this button here, and I could have copied the other on click, but I'll just type in on click equals and give it my double quotes, and then inside the double quotes I'll just paste my function. There's my hide Patrick function. So now when I do show Patrick, it shows it, and when I do hide Patrick, it hides it. Just so we're basically running an on click event that's basically running the function. And our function basically just includes what's going to happen. It's just our list of instructions. And let's say you want to have something else happen. Let's say you want to have, this is what I talked about at the beginning, let's say you want to have this h2 tag actually display a message that says good job when you show Patrick. Well, if you want to do that, that means that when you want to show Patrick, you'd have to put it inside this function. And as long as I have all this code here, I'm going to kind of copy this code up to here, and I'll paste it. Except we're not going to get the pick ID, we're going to get the message ID. That's what we called this h2. We called it message, so, or we gave it an ID of message. So I'm going to now target the message ID, and what's going to happen here, we're going to use a property called inner HTML, and that will allow us to write HTML right to the page. And then we could just put equals, and then in quotes we'll just put the message that's going to show up there, and we could just say great job. That'll be easy enough, just something real quick, and I'll put my semicolon at the end. So now when we run this show Patrick function, two things are going to happen. The opacity is going to change to 1, and the message, the h2 with the ID of message, is going to display great job. So now when we hit that, it says great job up here, and it displays an h2. Now when we hide Patrick, the great job is still there. Now if you wanted that great job to go away, that's pretty easy too, because since we know how to make it come out, I could go here into my JavaScript, and let me move this up so you could see everything. So since this actually displayed the great job, we could use that same thing to hide the great job. So I'm just going to highlight this whole line, and when this is going to occur, when we're going to hide it, is when we use the hide Patrick button. So if I paste this here again inside the curly bracket, how would I make great job go away? I could actually just do this. I could just get rid of the text that's inside the quotes. I could just get rid of the text that's inside the quotes and just kind of print out an empty string with nothing inside, not even a space. So inner HTML basically is going to equal nothing. So now if I save this, and I didn't save this yet, so I should save this as, I should give it a name, and I should call it, I think we called it 8 because it was exercise 8, so I'm going to call it JS, and I'll call it showHidePatrick, and I'll put my last name, and you could put your section or C1, M1. I'll just call it C1, M1 because I'm doing it for both, and I already have one, so this will kind of be for both, so I know it's for the video, and I know it's not just for one class. And now that I save that, I'll hit save again and move this over a little bit, and now when I do show Patrick, it does the great job, it shows Patrick, and I do hide Patrick and it goes away. So show, that stuff comes there, and the other way it goes away. So that's it. So that's the exercise 8, the show hide Patrick using JavaScript. We used a little bit of HTML, and just some of the things to remember from this. If you wanted some HTML to display on a page that wasn't originally there, just give it an ID and don't put anything inside, and then target it when you want it to show up using the inner HTML. The inner HTML actually allows you to write text to the page, but you have to tell it where it's going to display. And then also we made Patrick kind of go from 0 opacity to 1, and then back from 1 back to 0 again when we hide him. So we can make him kind of show up and go away just using opacity. There's other ways to do that. And also we have 2 functions, and then we have buttons that are running the functions with on-click events. On-click show Patrick, and then the other one has onClickHidePatrick, and they have to be exactly like that. You can't spell them wrong. You can't have the cases being different. They do have the parentheses that show up in there exactly like that. So give that a try. Make some variations, make some modifications to it, try other things, make other things display, and then we'll move on with some other JavaScript.